Good morning, everyone. We hope you are doing all well. Thank you very much for coming in such numbers. Today, we gathered our best team of experts in tax, customs, and international trade. Our mission today is to bust the myth around EU VAT and customs. What a program, isn't it? Let me first introduce you to our speakers of the day. I will start with Irini Ajerusu on my left and Adrian Scott Cox on my right. And both of them are from the Department of International Trade. They are based in Paris at the British Embassy. Good morning, Irini. And good morning, Michael. Adrian. Very happy to have you with us today. We would also like to welcome Mr. Charles Hogg from the company Unsworth. Charles is Commercial Director at Unsworth. Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Morning. Good morning. Very well. It's slightly rainy here in London, but ultimately looking forward to today.
Good to see you, Charles. Live from the wonderful city of Lyon, Mr. Clément Alloul, Brexit Manager at BBL. Good morning, Clément. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. Thank you. I'm really delighted to participate to this webinar.
Rainy weather in Lyon as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's rainy today. Absolutely not a good weather for us.
Okay. As you can see, we have a wonderful weather in the very north of France, as we are based in Lille, around Lille. And the weather is pretty nice. We also have Mr. Alan Vincent with us, our UK Sales Manager. Good morning, Alan. How are you?
Good morning, all. Yes, very well, thank you. In a bright sunshine. No, it's not. It's not. It's raining here too. It's absolutely tipping it down.
All right. And last but not least, our Mr. Brexit, the best DDP and Regime 42 specialist in the world, Mr. Arthur Sarkissian.
My mother is very proud of me, Michael. I'm hoping that she's watching. With this kind of introduction, she can be only proud. Thank you.
All right. We're very happy to have you with us today. And just a quick reminder about the possibility that you guys have to raise questions through our chat. Feel free to ask any question, and in case we wouldn't be able to answer all of them, we would all be very happy to go back to you as soon as we can. Irini and Adrian, I think you are our first speakers. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much everyone on the line for joining. I'm very pleased to be here in nice sunny Lille for once. And thank you for hosting us and putting this together. Today's topic is very important. I think it's very valuable for every one of us, and especially businesses, to upskill ourselves on the new changes that have been implemented. It's been over a year since we've been operating under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, where we've all had to adapt to new customs controls and procedures and learn quite a bit on the way. Traffic across the short straits has picked up to normal levels, and confidence in international trade is growing. And I think this is very much thanks to learning and development that we've all done across the year. Trade between the UK and France is very important, and France is our 5th largest trading partner, with over 65.7 billion worth of trade in goods and services in last year alone. And you businesses on the line are very much the backbone of this relationship, which has helped us overcome a particularly tumultuous year or two, should I say. Hopefully all of our lives should be getting easier very shortly, with the announcement on Friday that travel between the UK and France for non-fully vaccinated passengers, we no longer require PCR tests or antigen tests, so hopefully we'll be able to physically meet each other once again. In terms of the reasons we're here, obviously there have been a lot of changes since the 1st of January. The big ones that the UK has been massively communicating about, such as the introduction of full customs controls and import declarations for goods travelling from Europe to the UK. But alongside that, there are also some other changes which may sometimes slip through the net, but are vitally important for all businesses. And I look forward to gaining from everyone's insights on the call into these subjects. In terms of who I am and who Irini is, we both work for the Department for International Trade. So we're a UK governmental department which is here to support UK companies exporting to France and to attract and support investors going to the UK. We're also here to help you be able to trade smoothly by sharing information through things like our news flashes, organising events with trusted partners such as these to be able to upskill people, as well as help you resolve day-to-day issues. I personally work alongside the Export Support Service, which the DIT launched in October last year, which is a hotline and help desk. And we are a sort of one-stop shop for you to be able to access UK government support across a multitude of areas. The ESS is connected with colleagues across Europe, like myself and Irini, to provide local knowledge, and we are in turn connected with a variety of partners who can help provide in-depth support. Due to our roles providing trade promotion support as well as investment support going through the ESS, we can provide a proper end-to-end service. So please do get in touch with any issues you might have so we can support you to trade confidently and compliantly with Europe. And on that note, I will be quiet and pass things over to the experts.
Thank you very much, Adrien. Charles, I think you are the next speaker.
So thank you, Michael.
Over to you, Charles.
Brilliant. So welcome. And from my side of things, those that aren't aware of what Unsworth are all about, I hopefully will cover that off in the next few slides. Next slide, please. In terms of Unsworth, we've been established since 1974, but what that really means for a lot of our customers is the high levels of compliance in what we do and the technology we bring around customs declarations. And if we start by looking at the next slide, please. In terms of that, that's around the preparation. So anyone who's working with Unsworth knows that it's all about the prior planning, the onboarding calls, the overall process enablement calls, and the real understanding. The thing that's slightly unique about our offering is just how we work as this triangle with our colleagues over at BBL for the import customs side into France, and also on the fiscal VAT side with our colleagues at RMB. This is really the unique offering that we bring here today in terms of making your life of selling to the EU an awful lot easier. Next slide, please. In the world of home working and the desire for online access, there is a real push from us as a business to deliver this information in an easy to use online portal and system. Over the last 2 years, we spent an awful lot of money and time listening to our customers' feedback to really put this together and give them at their fingertips what's going on and the live status reporting of all their inbound and outbound shipments. Second to this is around classification on our next slide. In terms of classification, it's all about compliance and commodity codes. We've actually seen an awful lot of customers get this wrong over the last year, and ultimately, if they don't put in plans to fix it, it will cost them in terms of fines, delays, and additional costs. And our system now has a really well-integrated product library that enables this process to happen. But the most exciting thing that a lot of our customers and potential customers are really talking to us about at the moment, if we look at the next slide, is in terms of reporting. A lot of people's day-to-day reporting really doesn't give the sort of detail you can get with our BI and analytics tools in terms of duty spend, duty analysis, cost forecasting, landed cost forecasting, and overall visibility for management level or board level reporting. We're probably one of the first customs brokers in the UK to offer this as an integrated tool to all of our customers. And we're seeing that this is becoming increasingly popular, especially as people are attempting to measure the cost of Brexit to them as a business at stock unit level. And what our system enables that exact thing to happen. And it's been exceptionally popular. And if it's something that you feel could benefit your business, please do get in touch. This leads on the next slide, around visibility and some of the overall tactical level visibility that enables you to make quick, simple decisions. This links into, and finally, in terms of compliance and auditability, we're AEO accredited, and what that really means is that we are measured by HMRC in terms of our standards and process to ultimately deliver what we believe one of the best end-to-end customs clearance solutions on the market today, from a cost perspective, but also a time and speed perspective. It's becoming increasingly more popular as people are gaining the confidence to shop around now that the Brexit noise has really calmed down, and really are starting to see what else exists in the marketplace. And all I do is urge those on today's call to have a look. Just to name one feature that might attract some of you on today's call, if we look at our next slide around our Haulier portal, it gives you live status updates as to how your UK import is progressing and if there's any issues, and it can proactively notify you, and actually our team will deal with it typically in advance of that happening. I've gone through this exceptionally quickly because actually the most exciting thing is around the VAT, but what I would end with on our next slide is around the Short Straits Users Forum. This is a shipper-led forum put together for everyone on this call to engage with the ports of exit, i.e. Dover and Folkestone, and in particular, still the points of entry into the UK, particularly around Calais and overall sort of customs, CIVEP, and other processes that occur. We run in-person events at these ports, so we are bringing a busload or 2 coach loads of individuals to Inland Border Facility Sevington, and then across via the ferry or the tunnel into the Calais ports environment to really see firsthand what goes on and why you might not be getting the best value for the service that you're currently paying for, but also to give you the chance to ask those questions that you've not yet had answered directly to the officials themselves in what always turns out to be quite a lengthy interactive Q&A. So if that is of interest, the details are on that slide and we'll be circulating it afterwards. I appreciate a lot of the people on this call and those sat around the table in the RMB offices have also had the opportunity to attend the tours. And I think they too, even though they're in-country nationals, have really learnt an awful lot from it. Wouldn't you say so, Michael?
Thank you very much, Hans. It was crystal clear, as always. So we know now a little bit more about Unsworth can offer us as services for any UK company that would be willing to export goods to the EU from the UK. We appreciate that a customs issue can be very complicated, and I think if we can go on with the presentation and listen to what BBL and to Clément could say about the services BBL can offer to UK companies that would be willing to import goods into the EU, would be a very, very good thing. And I think, Clément, that you might be talking about how to import goods on a DDP basis. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely correct, Michael. I will explain to all the assistants how to import the goods in France via the Smart Border solution with the DDP solution, so without involving the final European consignees in the customs process. Okay, so let's, can we go to the previous slide, please? Just quick words about BBL and who we are. So BBL is a French family-owned company founded in 1997. We are a mid-sized player of the supply chain industry and active on 4 main segments: road freight, air and sea freight, contract logistics, and last but not least, customs. Our group is composed of today 1,500 staffs and with a revenue of roughly 450 million of sterling. We enjoy a great coverage of the French territory with more than 40 locations and depots today. Of course, Paris, Lyon, Marseille, etc., but also smaller cities. Customs is clearly a part of our DNA, as we originally started with transport between France and non-EU countries. Next slide, please. So we get more than 80 customs brokers in 6 different countries today. So based in Ireland, Belgium, Netherlands, Portugal, France, and Switzerland. We offer a full panel of services allowing to secure your flow from the very first customs step, so the commodity code classification, with the so-called RTC in France, the equivalent in the UK of the BTI. We help you to determine the origin of the goods. We help to analyze the taxation basis for the duties and taxes, and all that up to consulting, training, and monitoring of your customs flow. So now let's talk about BBL's Brexit team more precisely. We, since more than 1 year now, know how important it is for British shippers to keep the EU clients and make their life easier. So considering the customs border put in place, this is why we have invested 1 year ago in hiring customs experts to make the customs clearance process very smooth. Indeed, we have today here 10 experienced customs brokers dedicated for Brexit clearances only. 3 of them are specialized in the veterinary phytosanitary processes. We are absolutely able to clear all kinds of goods, food and beverages, wine and spirits. We have our own excise agreement. We have excise depot in the north and the south of France. We are in very good relations with the CVEP at Dunkerque and Calais, so absolutely able to manage product of animal origin, animal feed, and obviously general cargo. We offer a full covering week assistance from Monday to Sunday, from roughly 8 to 6:30, with obviously possibility to go out of those hours. We have put in place automatized process and able to clear 200 commodity codes in a very short time. Let's say an example, less than 20 minutes. And to conclude, we are able to offer very attractive rates with contract under the single brokerage partnership. Next slide, please. So preparing the very first shipment is the main work to achieve. Once those 5 mainstays are done, all the flow can run then very smoothly. The very first thing before starting to export your goods from the UK to the EU is analyzing your product's origin. Indeed, the British origin of the goods offer you a 0% duties rate. Then you need to determine the commodity code. In France, in order to clear the goods, we need to have 10 digits in the commodity codes contrary to the UK. Then, in order to import on your behalf the goods through the DDP solution, you need to get an EU ARE number linked to your British company. The next step is to analyze the commercial invoice producing. All the relevant information above must be informed in your commercial invoice. And then last step is to choose an experienced and professional customs broker like BBL on the French side and Unsworth on the UK side. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the smart border and the process of that. In order to avoid a huge traffic jams on both ferry and shuttle terminals on a side or the other, both UK and EU governments have set up 1 year ago a unique process that does not exist anywhere else, the so-called smart border. It consists in raising both British export clearance and French import clearance documents, so with barcodes, before the truck crossing the channel. It will allow the driver to pass all customs control and deliver the goods without having to involve any new customs formalities until the delivery, except obviously in case of customs control at Calais or Dunkirk on the French side. Let's see in details each step of the customs clearance process now. So, as you can see on the screen, this is typically what we call in France a DAU. So it is the import clearance document. And just on the right, it's the barcode related to the import clearance document. So as a very first step, once all the things are in order, the commercial invoice and the packing list are sent in the same time to BBL and Unsworth. Each on their own will raise respectively the export clearance, the so-called EAD on the British side, and BBL will raise the import clearance, the DAU and the barcode you can see on the screen. The barcode, so the barcode will be sent to the driver in order to be scanned on the British side before boarding on the ferry or in the shuttle. The DAU document, so the document on the left, is the customs clearance you have to achieve and proves of the importation of the goods on the EU territory. Like you can see, bordered in green on the very top right on the DAU, the status of the document is anticipé. So anticipate in English, we will see why later. Next slide, please. So once arrived at the British border, the driver must scan BBL's barcode and Unsworth EAD. In case of multiple barcode and EAD in the trailer, in case of group H, for example, the haulier can create what we call a logistic envelope. The logistic envelope is one global barcode, including multiple French barcode or transit documents. It has been created in order to avoid the driver scanning 20 or 30 different barcodes in case of, like I said, group H most of the time. Pairing will be done by the smart border system directly. The trailer registration will be coded by cameras and be paired with the document scan. Barriers open and let the driver border on the ferry or in the shuttle. During the crossing, you can see on the picture on the right, there are screens like you can see, and with all the trailers number aboard. It means that the driver can follow his trailer registration number during the crossing with two possibilities at the end, the orange line or the green line. Next slide, please. So once arrived at the terminal, like I said, two options are possible. Green line, so it means that the driver can go straight away to deliver. All goods in the trailer are cleared and into free circulation and release without control required. So it's the status you can see BAE on the clearance. So automatically our clearance will switch from anticipate to BAE. BAE in France means bon à enlever and can be translated in English by goods are cleared, okay to deliver. So the truck, if his trailer's registration is announced via the green line, can go straight away once arrived in Calais. In case of orange line, it means that the driver needs to stop at the customs parking for several reasons. The first one could be the routing declared on the clearance has not been respected. So for example, BBL has cleared via Calais and the driver took his ticket via Dunkirk ferry. So it will make the clearance stuck in the system and need to be manually released by BBL. It could be that the customs in France want to control the goods in the trailer. So it can be a documentary control, only checking invoice, packing list, and customs clearances, or they can proceed to a physical check. This step will require a cross-dock of the trailer and potentially the unloading of some pallets. It's really important for the driver to check those screens and respect precisely the line announced by the smart border. This information needs really to be strictly respected. Indeed, and unfortunately for us, French customs broker, in case of orange line, no barriers, no arrows, or any equivalent equipment physically put in place in Calais or Dunkirk by the authorities in order to prevent the driver from leaving the terminal. So this means that the driver has an important responsibility in the customs process. The status you can see on the bottom is the status valid. Valid in France for the customs authorities do not mean that it's okay, you can leave. It means that there is a physical or a documentary customs control on the clearance. So first status anticipate, then valid if a control, and the final one is the BAE. I think that's all for me. And up to you, Michael, for
thank you very much, Clément. Just a quick question for you. Am I right if when I'm saying that most of the time you're clearing goods in the name of the UK company in France?
Yeah. It's 95% of what we are doing today, clearing the goods on behalf of the UK company on the clearance due to the DDP terms used, which will allow the British exporter not to involve any EU clients in the customs process. So we have accepted the challenge at BBL to act as an indirect representative on the clearance, and no European companies, no French companies are informed on the clearance. All is centralized directly on the UK company thanks to the DDP solution. So we send the power of attorney to the UK companies as an indirect representation. And thanks to that, no European companies are involved in the customs process, which allow the British companies to remain very competitive and not board all the EU companies with the customs pieces.
Michael, stop for a second. Your microphone has just made you sound like a robot.
Yeah.
So it's changed at your end.
Michael, it seems to have a problem with your microphone.
Okay. If I can pick it up from here then, Anne, and we'll take us to the next slide.
Is it better like this, Alan?
Oh, you're okay now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's right now.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, sorry for this. It seems we're having some little technical issues.
Well, technology is always technology.
Yes, exactly. A few words about RM Boulanger. So we are definitely the VAT guys today. And our passion is VAT and just VAT. We speak VAT all day long.
Yes, nobody understands us, Michael.
Exactly. Our company is based in the very north of France, near Lille. We were founded in 1981, so we are one of the oldest company providing VAT services. We employ 30 people. We are lucky to have around 900 customers that are established in 45 different countries. And last year, we reported 2.8 billion euros of transactions to the 27 European tax authorities. Next slide, Anne, please. So what do? We offer VAT registration and compliance services, and that's definitely our core business. We help foreign companies to be their own sellers and importers in the EU, so that they do not have to involve any of their clients as the importer of recourse. And that's the reason why our services have been so popular since Brexit happened. We also provide VAT consultancy services in case you would have specific questions around VAT. We, of course, provide dedicated Brexit services, both for the EU and UK companies. And we also act as what we call a responsible person, also called an economic operator, in the EU for CE marked products. So if your companies sell CE marked products in the EU, then you will have the obligation to appoint a responsible person whose mission would be to collect all the information from your products and be the contact person for the European authorities. That's an obligation from last July, if I'm correct. So in a nutshell, we are assisting companies to trade within the EU with the possibility to act directly from the UK without the obligation to set up a company or a permanent establishment in the EU, which is, of course, a very, very nice solution from a cost perspective. And our goal is to make your companies able to sell your goods as if Brexit never happened. Next slide. And I think, Alan, you would like to say who you are, what your mission is with RMB, being our new sales development manager.
I do indeed, yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Vincent. I do head up the UK side of RMB. And thanks to Charles and Clement for their pieces on the customs side of your product's journey into the EU. I'm here to help you along with your VAT liabilities in the EU when you're exporting products to the EU. Now, France has made it really attractive to be the point of entry for products, UK products into the EU with the smart border, as Clement has talked about, but also with the new VAT rules at the start of this year, where they've made the VAT deferment process and mechanism mandatory, which means if you want to export goods to France or to the EU and sell in France, you have to have a French VAT number. If you want to sell into the rest of the EU and not France, there is a possibility of using our company's global VAT number as maybe a short-term solution. But ultimately, the long-term aim would be for you to have your own French VAT number. You then export your goods into France at Calais, clear the goods at Calais, and then those goods are in free circulation to go out to anywhere else in the EU. And those transactions will be done on your French VAT return on a monthly basis. Now, there is so much hearsay, rumors, false information about what is and isn't possible about exporting to the EU. I am absolutely here to answer your questions and to tell you the exact process that you need to follow in order to get these goods out there. We offer a DDP solution to do that. And most of our experience with EU clients is that they prefer UK companies to have a DDP option where the UK company is responsible for the customs and the VAT processes and clearances into the EU, and therefore they don't have to get involved with it. They just receive their goods. Economically and commercially, it is a much slicker solution. It's a much more cost-effective solution as well. So it really is my job to get the correct message out there to UK companies, and I am absolutely here to answer any of your questions. As we've all experienced, that exporting into the EU does face some bottlenecks, or has done traditionally, and probably the best person to take you through those bottlenecks is my good friend Arthur. So if Arthur would like to pick up from here.
Sure, Alan. You make it sound so smooth and so simple, but we of course are VAT geeks, so we will make it now a bit more technical, but we'll try to be as human and sound as human as we can. Now, as introduced by Michael, I am the Mr. Brexit persona in our company. So over a year now, I've been dealing and helping with British companies, helping them get the things right to get their goods into the EU. Now, obviously, there are a couple of things that now we all know that are the known bottlenecks within the process. We are talking about the complexity of the customs process, maybe sometimes even the Tower of Babylon, where people do not maybe understand each other completely. Obviously, veterinary and sanitary inspections, obviously BBL and Clement has that covered together with Unsworth from both sides. So that shouldn't be a problem. But of course, if you don't know where to start, that could raise issues. Pressures on your supply chain, on your delivery times, administrative burdens, all that paperwork, as we call it. But in the end, and we are here to talk about the fiscal part, aren't we, Michael? We are experiencing that people ignore that. You drive a truck, you get your goods to the EU, you obviously have all these physical, even hurdles that you must take, but the fiscal part comes after that. And that is what we are talking about today as well.
I have
So-
a very important question for you, Arthur.
Do you?
What is the reality from a tax perspective in the EU?
Oh, well, from a EU perspective and a tax perspective, basically when Brexit happened, you have a country that is leaving the EU, and so leaving all the common rules that we know from the EU. Now, from a British perspective, you guys experience that a lot of things change, but really from our perspective, nothing changed. It's just a relationship between those two countries. And I think, and next slide, if you can. First of all, we have B2B transactions between, for example, British and French or other EU countries that are not regarded anymore as a intra-community, intra-EU transaction. Remember the pillars of the European Union, that you have the free movement of goods, etc. You don't have that anymore. These are exports and imports now, and obviously these imports must be cleared. The goods must be cleared now. We have clearance formalities, such as we already heard from Unsworth and BBL, and they attract import VAT, don't they, Michael?
No.
And so that's, of course, our main subject today. So on top of that, when you have the situation with the combination that at the same time your European client still expects to get these goods delivered to their warehouses without really doing anything because they didn't do anything 2 years ago. So why should they now? That's the DDP context of the story. You get a very unique mix of variables that arise. So I think the most important thing is here to first understand who is doing what, where is the change of property happening, at what point, because that will decide then whether you are selling DDP to your client or something else. So I think that's the first step for any British or foreign company that should be taken internally in order to understand first what are you trying to achieve, and then have a look on the documents that we need to have.
Absolutely, and the DDP Incoterm would also avoid your company from issuing T1 or using T1 documents, and because what we experienced at the very beginning of Brexit is that a lot of UK businesses tried to sell their goods using T1s, so that their goods needed to be customs cleared in each country of destination, and that made the game very complicated for them. So what we are trying to explain is that probably the easiest way to have your goods going through the EU is to use the Incoterm DDP, so that your goods can be cleared in one single country of introduction. That would be France, and we will be telling you why France is so attractive, and it may seem a little bit funny to say that France, for at once, is one of the most attractive countries in the EU in this respect. But the key word is probably the DDP Incoterm. Can we go on to this next slide, Anne? We have a very important news for you. You may have heard that from the 1st of January 2022, the import VAT deferment has become mandatory. That means that it is not possible anymore for a foreign company to import goods into France without having a French VAT number. So there was a big news from the 1st of January. And this mechanism, the import VAT deferment, you probably know it because you also have it in the UK with the import VAT postponement, I think.
Postponed VAT.
Postponed VAT, exactly. Sorry for this. That's exactly the same system. Very interesting system from a cash perspective, because your company will be able to import goods into France without paying the import VAT. But to do so, you will need to have a French VAT number. The French tax authorities have decided to implement a kind of allowance for foreign companies, and this allowance would be of great help in case your company would not be registered for VAT now. Your company would be authorized to have your goods imported without a VAT number. provided that you can justify that you have appointed somebody acting as your tax agent, so that you can justify that your company is starting to apply for a French VAT number. That's a very important news because in case you wouldn't be registered for VAT, theoretically speaking, your company would not be able to import any goods. What we will be talking about is in a few minutes is the regime 4200. The regime 4200 is not impacted at all by this new reform, but in case your company will be selling to French clients, then you are now informed that you need to have a French number.
So if you go to the next slide, I think we would have a recap of the situation as it stands now. Is that as a result of this whole system, if I understand it well, Michael, and of course I do because I do this all day, but let's keep a conversation going, is that the import VAT is not to be paid anymore. We don't have a cash flow movement of money going back and forth of paying it and then claiming it back, waiting it for another 6 months. But at the same time, you must have a VAT number to be able to sell DDP into France, to be the importer of records and to own these goods after clearance, because that's what basically DDP is. You remain the owner of the goods when the goods are already cleared into French territory. Now, that's a good thing, isn't it? It sounds like a bit negative, but if we go to the next slide, it's basically, well, a blessing. On a short term, it's an annoyance, but on a middle long term, let's say that way, as soon as we get a VAT number, I think that's a blessing. Again, we are talking about cash flow. We are talking about processes that are much more streamlined, that are much more easy to manage. Would you say that waiting for this VAT number is worthwhile then, for these 2-3 months of waiting time? Because nowadays we have a waiting time of VAT number in France for 2-3 months. Unfortunately, obviously the French tax authorities have many requests these days. I would personally say, and that's what we say to most of our clients, is of course, please do wait for it for 3 months. But believe me, when this VAT number comes, you have basically more or less the same system as you know it in Britain. You will have your postponed VAT accounting, and you will have a process together with Unsworth and BBL from the customs side that will be very fluent. There is one particular thing to add, maybe, is that when you are importing then with the French VAT number, the French fiscal authorities inject automatically these amounts into your VAT return. So even that is being done for you. It's really, I think, a project to facilitate the movements from the UK to France, as Adrian said, which is a very important country to the UK and vice versa. Maybe you could tell us more, Michael, about the regime 42, because we are talking about 3 months of waiting time. But what do they need to do then in the meanwhile?
Absolutely. The regime 42 is a wonderful regime for companies, foreign companies who sell goods anywhere in the EU, but not in France. So if your company selling goods to any European country, but not France, then the regime 42 is definitely for you. The main specificities of this regime is that your company does not have to register for VAT in France, because your company would be using RMB's global VAT number. RMB was granted with a very important accreditation from the French tax authorities, and we are allowed to report any transactions that would be carried out by any UK or any foreign company. On top of this, the regime 42 would also allow your company to exempt your sales invoices from VAT, because your goods would be supplied from France to any other EU country. So it's a very interesting regime. It can be set up in, let's say, a couple of days. You would just need to slightly amend your sales invoices, but it would not be a big deal. And this solution could be a very good solution, waiting your company for being registered for VAT into France. And as Arthur said, it takes around 3 months. So maybe a very good system for your company. Next slide. Thank you. So Arthur, what does a UK company need to do in order to be fully set?
Not much. They need to have, first of all, the most important thing is a positive, humor and going into the matter with a smile. Besides a smile, we need an EORI number. We have now 2 EORI numbers for the British companies. We have one in Britain, in the United Kingdom. You have your own GB EORI number. As basically, this is a number that identifies you within the customs authorities. And then you have a French one or some other European one. Doesn't matter. You just need one for the whole European Union. So whether you have a Danish one, a Bulgarian one, or a French one, it all works. A slight exception from people maybe that would be using Northern Ireland and XI EORI numbers, that wouldn't work very well. So we really recommend to have a real European one, if that's okay to say. As Northern Ireland, many of you know that this is a transition zone. They also have their own EORI numbers, but they're really meant for the Northern Irish part. So an EORI number is a must to start with. A point, obviously, we would like you to do that, but the choice is free for you to do as your VAT agent. And then the next step is obviously you will need customs brokers from both ends of the border. You will need a British one to do the export formalities. This is where Unsworth comes in with their wonderful services. And the mirror side, on the other side of the channel, you have BBL waiting for you with open arms and welcoming you with all the documents you need. So you need to appoint then a French customs broker such as BBL to fulfill the import formalities. Well, that's basically it. There is not a lot of things to say about it other than that. You still remain a British company, as we said before. No corporate taxes or whatsoever occur in that process. It's really a matter of identification, nothing else.
So your company would remain the owner of your own goods into the EU with a full possibility of storing your goods anywhere in France, for example, or you would be able to sell your goods anywhere in the EU from France with no corporate tax issue, as you would remain taxed for corporate tax purposes in the UK. I think we have 15 minutes left, and we still need to go through our schemas.
Yeah, I think we have prepared a couple of cases, guys, to give you an example of what that really means in the process of in the reality. So we have identified a couple of cases, but I think the most important ones are already touched. The first case would be if you would be selling to only French businesses, Michael. We already said that we have the new rules where we have the obligation to have a French VAT number because of the good thing that you need to use the postponed VAT accounting equivalent in France. And obviously we have this temporary allowance or tolerance, let's say that way, from the French authorities that say, okay, if you are in the process of registering yourself into France, we will allow you to conduct your business and not to disturb your chain, your supply chains. So there, the process is simple. We need to have that VAT number. We register for a VAT number. If you don't have an EORI number, we can register you for an EORI number. By the way, that's really quick, like 24 hours or so, sometimes even less. So that's not a problem. It's really the VAT number that is bottleneck in that sense. And then the process is always the same. You have a VAT agent, which is us in this case. Gladly to do that for you guys. And we have every time, whatever the schematics or the solutions that you would choose, you still need a customs broker at the British side and a customs broker at the French side. That doesn't change. What changes in our examples are the formalities that they're doing on your behalf, but the fact that they need to be there is obviously not really changeable. So maybe if we can go to the next slide, we would have then a case, Michael, where you have both scenarios where a company sells to both French and EU businesses alike. So as you recapped, we could use the regime 42 as a temporary short-term solution.
Absolutely, because your company could be ready to keep on operating in the EU within a couple of days, and at the same time we would proceed with the VAT registration of your company with the French tax authorities. And in 3 months' time, your company would be ready to either sell goods to European clients, either to French-based clients. So the only thing, as Arthur said, is that it would take probably 3 months to have a VAT number, but using these the regime 4200 arrangements, your company would be able to keep on selling their goods to any other country of destination, but not France, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then in the third case, my apologies.
Oh yes,
Here, an overview, Michael, of all the operations that we could have in that case.
As you can see, the goods would be shipped from the UK, it would be exported from the UK, imported into France. They would attract import VAT, but the VAT would not be paid thanks to the import VAT deferment, and your goods could be shipped anywhere in the EU to either to registered VAT registered clients, but also to non-VAT registered clients. We have decided not to cover the B2C side of it because the VAT regulations when it comes to B2C transactions is very complicated, and I think it should be part of another webinar. But this arrangement would allow you to sell your goods anywhere in the EU, even to re-export them from the EU if needed.
I think there is only one thing we can for sure say. If you would have B2C operations, I imagine that people on the call, also companies on the call that have B2C operations, and you would ship to France, in either way, you will need that French VAT number. I think that's important to say. Absolutely. So that doesn't change. It's the subsequent sale then to the private individuals that would be different, but we'll be happy to discuss that with you in person. And then we have the third case where you could use the regime 42 only, or choose to register in France anyway. This is the case where you would be using France as a tunnel country. We have a lot of clients, Michael, I think, that use France as a tunnel country to the EU, and that's fine as well, I would say, meaning that they have clients finally everywhere in the European Union, or just one country, Germany, for example. But France is obviously a very efficient way to go from a transport perspective, geography, etc. So here you could basically choose whether you would be having a VAT number, right, Michael? Or you could choose to not have at any point, never.
Some of our clients who always have the same kind of transactions, they're always shipping, they always ship their goods to the same countries. The regime 42 would be the perfect solution. But they could also decide to register for VAT, and this would maybe help them to ship their goods to French clients, or even to have their goods stored into France, because the regime 4200 does not allow you to store goods into France, because the goods need to be immediately reshipped from France after customs clearance. So it's up to you actually to decide what regime is best adapted, but we would be more than happy to advise, to give you recommendations for you. I think we quickly move on to the case 4, just to tell you that, just to inform you that we are also able to help you the other way around. If some of your goods needed to be shipped from France or from the EU to the UK, and we've been helping a lot of EU suppliers with their VAT questions and issues in the UK.
Yeah, we would be more than happy to help. I think the process is quite similar. That's for sure. Especially now with the postponed VAT accounting, I could say that the process is quite similar. You get a broker in France, in the UK, and the VAT agent in the UK. I think people still have a lot of questions. Maybe we could move forward to the questions and have a look on a couple of them.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, everybody. I will go through the questions that have been posted in the Q&A session. So we start with a question from Indira, who is wanting to know the exact documents that must be submitted to reclaim the French VAT from the French customs. Now, I can only assume this is before the 1st of January in import VAT that you've already paid, because since the 1st of January, there is no import VAT to pay to the French customs, and therefore nothing to claim back. You will have to have that French VAT number to declare that import VAT on your French VAT return. There are also a lot of people asking about the XI EORI number. Now, our advice is, because the situation with Northern Ireland is ever changing, is that the XI EORI number, and as Clement will tell you, is valid in the EU. What we don't know is whether it's going to be valid in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. So it is always, we think the best advice is to get a European EORI number, French one being the easiest for us to get. But the other question that's come up about the EORI numbers is, can a company have 2 EORI numbers if it already has an XI EORI number? And I would put that out to Clement and the panel in Lille.
Yeah. So regarding so just one thing about the EORI number, having 2 different EORI number can constitute a serious offense for the European authorities. So in case of several or multiple EU EORI number, the shipper must ask to remove, to cancel all the EORI number except one with the authorities. We could help with that, because in case of control, in case of multiple clearances of or French agents, if the EORI number used are not the same, it can constitute a real litigation file for them.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Clement. One of the other questions that we get asked a lot is, does a UK exporter need a French VAT number if delivering DAP? And absolutely not. If you're delivering DAP, you are putting the liability for the customs duties and the VAT in the hands of your customer in the EU. What it does mean, though, is if your customer is based elsewhere in the EU, not in France, is they will have to have a French VAT number in order to be the importer of record and import into France. So the situation that we've had recently is one UK customer, one UK exporter with 10 customers in 10 different EU countries is now asking all 10 of those customers to get a French VAT number, when the alternative would be to sell on a DDP basis, with the UK company gets a French VAT number, clears the goods under their own name, and then ships to each of the 10 customers in each of the 10 EU countries.
Wonderful example, Alan.
I would go even further to say that we're starting to see a lot of UK established businesses that are selling to the EU wanting to make it easier for their customers in the EU to buy from them, and almost remove the risk of that EU buyer from buying from their friends in Germany within the sort of EU 27. So we're starting to see the sales director or the people on the boards of businesses getting concerned that we've got to remove the friction from the trade. And that's where I guess my quest comes into it, that actually it's not just a cheaper, simpler, more efficient, less delay, digitized process. It's also making it more attractive for your customers to buy from you. And I think that's sometimes a very important point, because even if we look at the statistics that RMB quoted, that's 2.8 billion worth of trade we've almost protected and shielded for UK, majority of UK businesses. And I think that's something that's very fundamental.
Thank you, Charles. Absolutely right. We do have a couple of questions which come up so often. One of them is, can you get a French VAT number without being established in the EU? Absolutely, yes, you can. You can, as a UK company, you can have a French VAT number, and it means you're not established in France. You're not liable for corporation tax or any of the other tax liabilities. Your UK company remains liable in the UK for all of those things, but your VAT liabilities are on your French VAT number, on your French VAT return, and us as your VAT agents would be responsible for filing that on your behalf. Now, we do have another couple of questions, one from Tony Charlesworth, which is about a commodity code, which is prohibiting for exports into Mallorca, but is valid for the Czech. Tony, I'll put this out to Clement, and he will pick this up with you personally later this forum is not that specific. And the same with you, Tracy. We're talking about exporting machines to the EU, into the Netherlands, and then via distributors out to the rest of Europe. We can talk to you about that, and I will reach out to you afterwards to talk about that setup and how best to look at that. With regard to other questions, if we have just a last minute left, the main things that are coming up are that people are struggling a little bit to understand how they can use the French VAT number, and that acts as almost an entity for them in France and the EU. You don't have to have that physical entity in the EU to have that French VAT number. That French VAT number works on your behalf as an introduction to the EU, brings your goods into free circulation, and allows them then to be sent out to anywhere in the EU, having cleared customs with no further checks, no further VAT. The fact that you're not paying import VAT now into France frees up a big chunk of your cash flow, and the fact that you're not using T1s to get it across Europe also frees up a big chunk of money. So commercially, it really is the best solution. The DDP is the best solution, and we have come to the end of our time here. So with all the other questions, I will reach out to you individually and pull the answers together for you. The recording of this webinar and the slides will go out to all of the participants today. And thank you very much for your time and attention today. And as you'll see on screen now, the contact details for all of the people involved in today's webinar are on screen. Please do take a note of them. As I say, you will get the slides afterwards. But we are absolutely here to answer your questions, to ease any kind of worries that you have in this situation.
You're a brilliant speaker, Alan. You speak English so well.
I try, although I think yours is better than mine.
Well, I think our webinar comes to an end. I would like to thank you all of our speakers. I'm very, very grateful that you all of you have joined this webinar. Thank you for being so many of us, and we're looking forward to meeting you in presential, in person next time as soon as possible. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a very nice
Good day.
Thank you.